Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Bandung Startup Pitching Day 2.0 2022. We have gathered again in this hall after the lunch break to continue our afternoon session. So after we filled our stomach, it's time to feed our insight with another delicious feast, because to start off this second session, we will be listening to the entrepreneurial talk with the topic scaling up and investment opportunities of startup. And there will also be Q&A session at the end of the talk, so audiences may save and keep your question to be answered later on by our speaker. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage our distinguished speaker, the MIT Venture Mentor for 15 years and the founding partner of Corporate Whisper Ventures, Mr. Michael Fox. The time and stage is all yours.
I hope you had a nice lunch. Thank you for inviting me to come join you. I'm a very unusual individual, and I've been asked to share some insights with you, all right? So first of all, I've just spent the last 25 years in Silicon Valley, and you'll usually find an individual who does startups, an individual who does institutional capital, or an individual that does corporates. And sometimes you find two of those. I've actually done all three. And I want to come and share some of the insights with you guys, okay? So this is a little bit of background on me. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sony Vaio, but I was on the launch team for that. I helped realign Mitsubishi's business units. I was hired by a $5 billion fund to help build valuation, and I took one of their companies from 50 million to 300 million in 5 months. So I've done some very interesting things. I've helped realign how business units function, and I became a thought leader in corporate venture. So I need your help, okay? First, could you write questions down if you have questions about, I'm gonna cover a lot of ground, and if you want to learn more, please write it down. And I have a personal fault. When I get excited, I speak too fast. So if I start speaking fast, please say, Michael, can you slow down, okay? Is that a deal? Fair enough? All right, so I'm going to break this down into a few different chapters here for you. First, we're going to talk about structured value, and then we're going to talk about unstructured value. So how many of you understand the difference between institutional capital and corporate capital? Okay, so institutional capital is basically where you're making money on money, and it's about risk, okay? It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to take you through that. And then I'm going to show you a little bit about what the corporate world is, which is a very different exercise. It's all about strategic value, okay? So you may have seen this, but it's all going to be about risk and how much risk you take on and what you're willing to give up and who's playing, okay? Now this is very straightforward stuff. This is what I'd like to refer to as the flavors of money, okay? And each money has associative attributes, okay? So if you go to friends and family and you're raising money for a startup, there's an obligation there that you can't break, you have to succeed and so on. And it increases as you move through the different flavors. I'm gonna focus on venture capital and corporate to give you guys an idea, because that's some of the trickiest stuff, okay? But I'm put this up here for you guys to get an idea of the different, understanding your audience is absolutely imperative, because the expectations are very different for different kinds of money, all right? So let's look at how a venture fund works. I'll go over this very quickly. If you have a $100 million fund, they have a 2% management fee. I'm generalizing here, okay? And they take money from big funds and they put it at risk, and the venture capitalists themselves, those are called the GPs, right? They get a 20% return of whatever they generate, and then the LPs, the people who invested the money, they get 80%. But you have to understand where the expectation is, okay? They spend, the reason I put this up is about how people spend their time. They spend less than half their time basically looking at deal flow, okay? Now I built a fund, and we looked at 1,200 opportunities in a year. Okay? And here's an example that things are counterintuitive. In order to get to 100 on the short list, we had to look for reasons not to invest. So you won't even know it, but you could be dismissed because you did something that they didn't, that didn't fit into the matrix. Okay? This is about risk reduction. And IRR is how you measure how a fund works and how successful it is, investor rate of return. So how much money, if you end up giving me, investing money into my fund, how much money I give back to you is going to be how you measure how successful I am, all right? That's called IRR. And the more you reach product to market, and some of the startups that we just saw are real products with real opportunities, and you've de-risked the opportunity, and in some respects, that's growth capital, that's not startup investment. And that's a very important differentiation, okay? So this is one that I'd like to really focus on for a minute, because what's the expectation? If you end up investing money in a fund, in a startup, I need to know that most traditional venture funds are looking, they have a number in their mind. I think that you're going to earn a 10x multiple on my money. So if I invest $1 million, you have to convince me that I'm going to make 10 times money within a given period of time. And usually this is I'd say a 3 to 5 year return with software. With something like clean tech, it's 8 to 15, and with biopharma and med tech, it's 17 to 20. Okay? So there are different returns on investment and expectations. So if you're going to try to talk to a VC, you need to convince them that they're going to see return on investment and show them that you've anticipated where the risk factors are. Fair enough? So it depends on what the domain focus is, yeah? So the other thing is that venture capital is it's a living thing. It's dynamic. When they first started venture capital in the 60s, they didn't know what they were doing. And they believed they invested in the people, and they thought, I think there's something there. And that was the start of the space program. It was semiconductors. It was Intel. They didn't know what they were getting involved with. But it evolved and it iterated. Now, I have to be full disclosure, I don't agree with the conclusions about the beyond. I think smaller is much more where the value is, not go bigger. But that's just my personal philosophy. So, but it's an evolutionary process, okay? And here's an example for you. When it comes to startups, 15 years ago, it was, to do a startup cost $250,000. And then it was $50,000. And then it's a kid in a closet with a laptop. So it's an evolutionary iteration. So when they say seed is the new A, so A is the new C, it's changing. And it's on you to pay attention to how those changes are, because you're going to be talking to people. If you want to get investment capital, you need to understand their world. It's about them, not you, right? And the creation of value is happening at an exponential speed. And one of the things that I've learned, it's all about agility, okay? Especially in a post-COVID world. If I run into a corporate and he said, but that's the way we've always done it, he's a dinosaur and he's the walking dead, and he doesn't even know it yet, right? But it's the agility, those people that will evolve and iterate, that will survive and succeed, okay? So now let's talk about corporate, okay? Corporate venture capital started about 1990, in the early 90s, okay? And usually a company will see something, oh, that's a really beautiful chair, we're going to buy that and turn it into a business unit, right? It basically mergers and acquisitions. But as corporates evolved, they realized, wait, I better get in on that because I need to know what those colors are before it's built. So they're learning to co-architect and move earlier and earlier in the investment cycle. So corporate venture is actually bigger than venture capital, but most people don't know that. So when Siemens wants to invest, they do it for strategic value. So let's say, for example, you've invented a new light bulb. Congratulations, you just invented a new light bulb, okay? And you bring it to me as I'm a venture capitalist, and you say, okay, Michael, I've got this great light bulb, I've productized, I've got a defensible position, I've got these great customers, and I'm going to make 50 million next year. I'm going to say, awesome, I think that's incredible. Let's do business. If you come to me as Siemens and you say the same thing, I'm going to say, congratulations, why do I care? But if you say it differently, and you say, I've got this great light bulb, I've got a defensible position, I've productized, and here's how it's going to impact this business unit you've got at 1.6 billion, and this at 3.2 billion, and this is how it's going to give you competitive differentiation against Philips. I'm your new best friend. And I care very little about the money I invest. I care about what you can do for my business units. You understand? Is that good? You guys getting this? Oh, I got a good smile there. Yeah. Okay, so let me give you an example of how quickly it's changing. Now, please bear in mind, this is exponential in terms of these are 1,000 investment from 1 to 1,000. And this is 1 million to 100 billion, right? Up here. So it's not linear, it's exponential, right? And China wasn't even on the radar, okay, in 2012. Look at where it is in terms of the amount of investment dollars, it's just obscene. And my fund was in China, so I know a little bit about it, yeah? So here's a really interesting, it's a poor graphic, but I'd like you to look at this. This is the A round, B round, C, D, and E and exit, okay? And this is just in a 3-year period. Watch what happens. It's from 2013 to 2016, just a 3-year window. Now, most of you will say, oh my God, this is incredible. Look, it's a 300% growth. You know what? That's just inflation. What's fascinating here is this. It's doubling on the C round. It's nearly 60% growth on the B round in a 3-year period. That's unbelievable, okay? That tells us the corporate is saying, hey, you know what? I really want to help you design that light bulb, right? I want to get in on it with you, okay? I want to bring all my resources and some of my engineering talent, my channel, and my brand. What can I do to help make that the bulb that I need for my business unit, right? So this is very, very instructive, okay? These are some of my friends that we've been working with. A number of these people, they have different DNA. And you need to understand they're not all the same. In fact, they're all unique. Much like every culture is very different, so are the corporates, okay? So here's an example of what we talk about in our little gated community, okay? I had 800 people out of 2,000 in a room trying to understand. They saw this as really, really important to try to understand what is critical thinking. How do we use that for corporate innovation, for sustained value? So this is what they think about amongst themselves. I thought this might be helpful for you, yeah? Okay, so now what's important here, I'm going to start going over some of these. This is the next chapter, the unstructured stuff, okay? But it's important to understand that there are 3 different kinds of investors. There are people that invest in people, investors in people, and people that invest in markets. And then there are people, the investors that look at products. I'm a people guy because inevitably things will change. I mean, even Airbnb, it didn't start Airbnb, it was Air Mattress B&B. And it evolved and it iterated, but it was the people that turned it into a real product. Same thing with Instagram, same thing with Facebook, same thing with any of these big products, okay? So this is an example, I use this as an American example, but it could just as easily apply to any culture. This is about the different gaps oops, sorry, my bad, about generation gaps, okay? Millennials, Gen X, boomers, and so on. And if I was airdropped into the middle of Kansas armed with nothing but that piece of paper, I could navigate the culture because I could understand what I could take a best guess. My intuition would tell me what drives the different individuals, male, female, older, younger, understanding your market and what they worry about, what their concerns are. And it's absolutely imperative. I see so many companies fail because they come out of the gate and they say, me, 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 me. And they don't think about what is it going to be to impact that customer or that channel partner or that investor, right? I could call an investor who I haven't, or a colleague of mine who I haven't spoke to in 10 years. And within 20 minutes, if I had something interesting, we would be thinking about it together because you understand, I would be thinking about the things that they would be worried about or concerned about or interested in, okay? So, for example, if you're a corporate, this is what I care about. Product life cycle, cradle to grave. The mechanics of how do you launch a product, why is it relevant? When I was at Mitsubishi, I showed them for the first time, one of our divisions sold semiconductors. And I showed them every time you make a semiconductor, you look at product life cycle. And the first 2/3, I'm recovering all my R&D costs, and the last third is all gravy, okay? And I showed them how to not only extend the product life cycle, but turn it into an annuity. They had never seen that before. It means ongoing value, right? Because it was about solving a problem, not just pushing out semiconductors and chips, okay? So here's another example. Understanding the product life cycle, what does it mean to each of the different products and so on, yeah? And one of my mentors once told me, if you don't understand food chain and landscape, you're done. And you say, Michael, what are you talking about? So the food chain is who's above me and who's below me, and the landscape is who's my competition, what's going on dynamically in the field, okay? So it's a three-dimensional exercise, understanding where you sit and why your value would be sustainable versus just a moment in time, right? So I show this to my friends in America, and they're like, wait, what? They don't get it, okay? Most in Europe, because they do pay attention, but everyone here, of course, knows this is half the world. And this is where it's the emerging markets, and what may have been true 15 years ago or 20 years ago, they take the American model and they put it somewhere else. Not so much anymore, right? And this is one of the reasons why I'm here in Indonesia. I moved here because I believe in what's happening here, okay? And this is where it's happening. And you can't do it. You know what in America we refer to as this part of the world as other. It's a very arrogant perspective. Not something I do, but that's, if you don't understand the differences between Malaysia, Indonesia, northern Thailand, southern Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Singapore, Philippines, you're done. If you use the word I in Japan, you're done. So you really have to understand the cultural nuance and differentiation, okay? So here's an example. One of the things we look for is team, okay? And some of the startups I saw this morning had a remarkable articulation of value for team and domain knowledge. It was great. And this is a typical kind of, what's your dream team? The hacker, hustler, and hipster. Now, normally you might see something like this. But you know what? The world isn't even. And you can take some incredible talent, but if you can't unlock that talent, you're done. And so this actually is very, very meaningful. I met Steve a couple times, and he had what's called a reality distortion field. And he earned it, to be clear. He's not delusional. He could literally bend reality to his will. Now, he wasn't a very nice guy, but he did some remarkable things, but he earned that. And there's a reason why when he came back to Apple in its second life, he saved it from, it was nearly about to go bankrupt. He turned it into the most profitable company in America and times on the planet. So we also look for skills, right? And I think this is especially apropos in a post-COVID world. And I encourage you all to look at the World Economic Forum. What they look for, these are the dynamic skills. These are soft skills. It's not just finance, which is important, of course. It's not just management, which is important, of course. Strategic insight, but it's the soft skills. It's the problem solving. It's the ability to see a situation and try to thread a way through it that makes sense, right? And I think I'm not the only guy who sees this. So communication is going to be one of the big themes that you're going to hear me talk about. De-risking and communication and cultural localization. This is important stuff, okay? So here's an example that I think exemplifies it. Is the audio on? Let's see if, no. Can I get, I don't know if I can push play or not. Oh, yeah. I don't know where my mouse is. Nope. Can I get, there we go. Thanks, guys. So the reason I share this with you, it's about perspective and how you see the world or how others see you, right? Is it play? No. I guess I'm not playing. Oh, he's trying. My kingdom for a mouse. At the end of this, I put together some case studies to share with you things that I've been through, things that I've helped with, things that I've seen that really, I think, have profound value including some work from one of my student teams, yeah? I was also teaching in Holland for 3 years as well for international business and law. It doesn't play? That's all right, I'll cry later. I'll move on. Okay, I'll let you know if we can get to the next one. All right, so have any of you met Canadians before? No? They're notoriously nice. They're wonderful people. Part of my family is Canadian. But this is an example about what it means in different worlds. You know, if you, I don't need to show you what a riot would look like, but that's actually funny but true. That's about how Canadians deal with things. Just a little, you know, we're mildly upset, right? Now, this is an example. I put this together many years ago for the CTO of British Telecom. He asked me to talk to the startup community about process, not about product. How do cultures do business differently across different lines? So I picked 5 cultures, and I showed the differentiation, how the Germans are debt averse, for example. They look at 10 years. Americans are very short term. They think in terms of quarters. They'll throw sawdust in the gas just to make it go a little bit further, even though it'll destroy the engine and it's somebody else's problem downstream. Or the Japanese, how they plan for the 100-year plan. And when I was at Sony and Mitsubishi, we didn't even see Samsung in our rearview mirror. But it was all decision by consensus. It was very much a hive mentality. And it slowed us down for the speed of progress. And now look at where Korea is, right? And it's all about the Korean Sun Network, right? And the relationships to family and so on with China, right? And it's about values. And if there's no judgment, they're just different, right? So here's an example. Let's see, I guess I can't. Does this play? I guess it doesn't play. Unavailable, medium, all right. All right, I'll just describe this to you, for you. There's a young man starting his job for the first time, and he's terrified. And he's sitting in front of a panel with his uniform, and an older, seasoned veteran is teaching him what he needs to. He's speaking in German. Wada, 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 reda. He puts his hand on his shoulder and he walks away. And the guy's shaking like a leaf, and all of a sudden his panel lights up. And all of a sudden you hear this, Mayday, 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 we're in distress. And he reaches the microphone and he says, this is the German Coast Guard. Because we're in distress, we're sinking. What are you thinking about, right? And it's an advertisement for Berlitz. But that's a perfect example, and no disrespect, but it's about lost in translation. And I can't tell you how many opportunities, solid opportunities, both as an investor and as an entrepreneur and as a corporate, have gone right by each other because of this. And neither side even knows that it was missed, right? And it breaks my heart to see when that happens, right? Oop, I guess I lost. Oh, there we go. All right. All right. So here's an example. I came across Richard Lewis's work, a remarkable academician from England. When I was teaching in Holland in the second year, I realized I come in for a week in the fall and a week in the spring, and the students weren't prepared to engage until Thursday or Friday. They would step out of their comfort zone. And I'm already thinking about flying home. So what can I do as a good educator to get them to step out of their comfort zone on a Monday morning? So I said, okay. So the third year, I knew I had a completely new crew, 80 students, and I said, I need your help. And I flashed through 120 slides. And I said, I need your help. I'm going to talk about how to do business internationally, how to communicate internationally, and how to manage people internationally. And I need your help. And when you see your country, I want you to jump out of your chair, and I want you to yell, stop. And I want you to deconstruct it and say, is this correct? Help me understand. I want your confirmation, right? And I couldn't have been more wrong how powerful that was. There was a young man from Kazakhstan who wouldn't shut up. It was awesome. He felt the comfort and the empathy to be able to step out and say, this is right, but you should do this, this, this. And my purpose wasn't to say, this is how you do business in Canada, or this is how you do business, but to get them to recognize 80% of their students were from around the world. And the person to the left of them and the person to the right of them think differently. So it's not my task, my cross to bear to say, I want to teach you how to do business in Canada, but to say, show the person to understand that they're not wired the same way you are. And, you know, the profound impact, on Friday afternoon after my last lecture, a young man came up to me. He was shaking like a leaf. I'm sorry, I must have been very intimidating. It wasn't my intent. And he was a young lawyer from Indonesia. And he said, looked up at me and he said, Mr. Fox, when I started your course on Monday, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Now I'm so excited at the possibilities, I can't sleep. As a teacher, it doesn't get any better than that, right? It's awesome. So that's an example, okay? So now we're going to look at chapter 3, about looking at the why. So I've tried to explain to you about some of the de-risking, some of the things that investors and strategic partners and corporates are going to be looking for, not only for reasons to do business, but reasons not to, right? Credibility, validation, so on. So let me give you some, I want to walk you through some case studies as an example. All right, there's still no joy on I've gotten a hand. Okay, so I met this young man at MIT. He just finished Sloan School. I'm an MIT venture mentor, so I would advise a lot of young startups. And he said, Michael, I've been a ramp rat for 3 years, putting myself through school. That's a baggage handler at the airport. And I travel a lot. And I'm an engineer. And so if you understand anything about engineering and airplanes, for example, the safety factor on an airplane is about 1.2, I think. Failure is 1. A car is a safety factor 3, so 3 times failure. So the last thing you ever want to do on an airplane is touch the envelope. And so everybody flying, when they fly, whether it's baggage or food or the jetway, they're supposed to come up to the airplane this close and never touch the airplane. So that's just my working knowledge. And he said, Michael, I'm a ramp rat. He said, you know that the number of times that accidents go unreported by ground crew when the plane is stationary is 53%. And that touched my heart. Oh my God, cool. So this is his video, yeah? Each accident, he said, was $80 to $100, or $250,000. They bump into the airplane, they don't want to tell anybody. And they compromise the integrity of the plane. So we created a collision avoidance system. That helps mitigate touching the airplane. And then there's accountability and insurance and asset, protecting your capital asset and so on. So it's tremendous. And the industry aggregate of money lost every year is $4 to $10 billion. Forget about Webb, could, would, should. This is real every year with airplanes. It boggled my mind. So let's keep going. Okay. I saw a video in 2008 with an engine that could work on compressed air. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And I had an epiphany about how to test it, to validate it for market adoption in the US, because it's not going to happen in the US. It would happen somewhere else that we could test it. I said, I got to go to Palau, right? Do you guys know where Palau is? It's 500 miles east of the Philippines. It's population 21,000, but they copied the American legal system. So if you get it, there's only 21,000 people. If it works there, then America will say, oh, okay, they don't like to be first. And so I went out on my own, just armed with only my noggin, and I gave myself 3 months. If I can't find it in 3 months, it isn't there. And I managed to get within 2 months the 2 key stakeholders to say, you're sensitive to our culture, this is this strong opportunity, it's an opportunity for building light industry and careers in our country, what can we do to help, right? But it's about going out and getting the validation. So here's an example. In 2003, I was approached by a company that had created something quite remarkable on a mobile phone. Okay, now bear in mind, the iPhone was launched in 2007, 3 years later. So up until then, everybody just had basically a Motorola flip phone, okay, or Nokia. And this is how convincing. The man who built this company had already sold his company for, previous company for 140 million. So he was a smart guy, but he couldn't market his way out of a box. And with these few slides, I was able to convince, within 10 minutes, people to basically pull out their checkbook. So to say, look, I understand the nature of the problem. And by the way, this is where all the value lies, right? It's all on people's laptops. It's not in some sub-basement at a server farm. This is what you care about. So the customer liked this, right? I showed this to General Motors, they loved it, right? Showed it to investors, they loved it. The strategic partners like Nokia, they're holy cow, right? So I was just saying, do we understand each other? And this is the problem statement. Everything is isolated and compartmentalized. Do we all agree? And they all said yes. And all I had to do was show them this. I said, look, it sits on a thin client, works through your carrier, it works through behind your firewall, and it can talk to all your legacy systems, period, full stop. Now, we do that today on our phone. But can you imagine? Well, this was in 10 minutes. The guy had, I sat with him the first time for 4 hours. It took him 2.5 hours to tell me what the hell he did, right? But it's amazing what proper messaging can do for you if you understand their concerns, not yours. Not, I've done this great thing, but look at the problem I've solved for you, right? I shared this with the CTO of British Telecom, and his comment was, it's bleeding obvious. I said, Peter, can I quote you? It was great. Okay, so here's an example of one of my students, this team I was teaching, and they were remarkable. Let's see if we can play it. Does it play? Nope, maybe? I got my fingers crossed. So this is the first program of its kind in the US of an MBA in design thinking, and it had very international, it's unavailable, all right. I'm winging it. The team went and did 2.5 weeks of research down in Mexico City, and they basically had done, their concern was about air pollution and the fact that messaging, sending packages in Mexico, people were using taxis. So they wanted to basically switch it to bikes. It was a version of GoCheck in 2014, and it was so remarkable, so beautifully done, that one of the new partners at Kleiner Perkins, one of the top venture capital firms, basically singled them out. They said the MBA program is incredible, but the passion that I've seen here with this Latin team, I've never seen such passion. The world needs more of it. And one of the students came up to me weeping.
Hello everyone, we are the Latin Venture Hub. This is Daniel, Mariana, and myself, Pablo. We're a multicultural Latin team working to build a more connected, smarter, and faster growing Latin America. Here's our project in urban delivery. Latin American cities are ill-designed, and that affects the mobility not only of people, but of goods and products within the city.
Did you know that in Mexico City, 3.3 million hours are lost every day due to traffic and mobility inefficiencies? This accounts for $2.5 billion in annual losses. This produces problems in productivity and competitiveness. It damages the environment and overall makes moving goods across the city a frustrating and painful experience. We believe that this problem is ready for a new and innovative solution. We will use design thinking, best-of-breed technology, and our own cultural sensitivity to develop a solution that radically improves the way products and goods are transported within the city.
Our goal is to make the delivery of goods in the city as easy as 1, 2, 3.
To validate our assumptions, we flew to Mexico City, one of the largest metropolises in Latin America. Our objective was to learn firsthand what we needed to accomplish to make our solutions happen. We started exploring the space by talking to people that were already working on delivery services, like bike messengers and taxi drivers.
We went with them into their space, we searched their pains, we asked about their challenges, and learned what's working and what isn't.
We talked to small business owners who wanted to extend their reach and find ways to expand their business activity. We also talked to emerging e-commerce companies whose business is dependent on the effectiveness and quality of delivery services. We even talked to large corporations who use inefficient and informal services like taxi drivers to deliver hundreds of documents every month. We finalized by going to a networking event where we met up with important stakeholders in the area of urban mobility, including programmers, government officials, and industry experts.
After conducting initial research, we went back into the streets with markers and papers at hand to co-design and build our service prototype. We went screen by screen with the user to make our solution as easy and accessible as possible. By the end of this exercise, we had come up with a refined version of our original idea. In our journey, we were able to validate, adjust, and refine our idea to a point where it can become a real service in the market. We are still in the process, but we are confident that we're onto something great. Stand by as we continue to develop the project. Thank you.
First, I should clarify, this was not part of the course requirement. They wanted to document it, and it's not done. It's raw, it's visceral, but it's lightning in a bottle. It captured the spirit of what they were trying to do. And I was so profoundly moved, I changed the course. And for the next 3 years, I made making a video part of the requirement to try to communicate their value. Because it's not easy, right? But they captured the passion, I think, very, very well, yeah? So here's another example of a young man who reached out to me who knew exactly what he was doing, okay? He basically knew his audience. He wanted to be short, sweet, and surgical, get the job done. He wanted to convince me that there's a real market there, that he's getting real traction. It's very simple, but it's a great example. And either I'm interested or I'm not, but I get to the cut to the chase, and I respect him for that. And even if he moves on to another startup, I remember Pieter and his value, right? And he was doing something quite remarkable. He showed that he's getting, the value is seen by others as well, okay? Now, we talked about diabetes, one of the startups here, yeah? So how many of you are familiar with type 1 diabetes? Anybody? Okay, so this is early onset diabetes. You're born with it.
First, you gotta get a strip, then it has to tell you a code, prick your finger, then the blood will come out, then it would read your number and...
When I talk about how I look at a company, I look at team, idea, market, TIM above, and then an E for parentheses for emotion. This video, called Jerry the Bear, is remarkable because what they did was they looked at it from the child's perspective. Oh, it's clinical, it's antiseptic, it's medical, and there must be something wrong with you, and you're a bad child. And the child doesn't know any better, and I can't even imagine. And I watched this video the first time, and I thought, if I had a niece or nephew with type 1 diabetes, I would buy this thing so fast, I wouldn't even look at the price tag. So the emotion trumps everything. It's the lizard brain, right? And so when I look at things, I'm always looking at, when I listen to all the startups, I'm looking at team idea market, team idea market, team idea market. And then there are some ancillary things that you have to be cognizant of. Things that are important to me or things that are important to the different values to your audience and so on. This is an incredibly powerful video. And the part that I think is most powerful, first they clearly define, we'll play the video in a minute, I really want you to see this. It's about messaging. They define the problem. And then they say very simply, we're a team of designers, and we make toys for kids with disabilities, with issues. And our first product is totally clear, totally focused, totally on point. Who are you? What's your identity? And what do you do? And so when I see that, I have to celebrate it because so few people have clarity in their own insight. Can we play this one from the beginning? You guys?
You gotta get a strip, then it has to tell you a code, prick your finger, then the blood will come out, then it will read your number and tell your blood sugar. Then you put the insulin in here, this just injects it, you pull this up and then
as parents, you're constantly trying to protect your child from the stigma of this institutional feel. It's normal, there's nothing wrong with him.
You have this idea of what you want for your kids, you know, their life to be carefree. And he does really good, but you can see it in his face sometimes that, you know, he's not a normal kid. You know, he has diabetes and it's hard.
If there's a way that we can make it a little less clinical, a little less medical, a little more fun, then we're all for it.
So Sprout Tau is our company. We make interactive teaching toys for children that are diagnosed with a chronic illness. And so Jerry the Bear is the first product of Sprout Tau. It's a cuddly teddy bear for kids with type 1 diabetes that teaches them how to manage a healthy diet, check their blood glucose levels, and recognize their symptoms. With diabetes especially, and with a lot of things, the ramifications don't happen until later in life. It's not something you can rationalize to a child. It's really abstract and it's scary. So instead of using scare tactics, we use fun, we use play.
It's time for car games. Feed me the amount of carbs on my screen.
For a certain period of time, you're just worried about, in the medical community, you're worried about getting it right. You know, you want to create the best possible information and you want it to be correct. And now that we've gotten to that point, it's about providing that care and providing that information in the best way. He's got this backpack, and in it, he's got his foods and his insulin pen.
We are special and brave bears. I need to take insulin when I eat to stay healthy.
You know, they give you...
You get the idea, right? Thanks. In the interest of time, I made it for an hour and a half, so I'm trying to cover a lot more ground. So let's see if I can keep going here. But you get the idea. That's a company that's totally on point. They know who they are. They know who they want to be when they grow up. And they're totally in touch with their market, right? So let's see if we can keep going here. So remember TIM, huh? All right. So here's an example. I invited Alain to sit on a panel for me, right, which is now NG, but it was called GDF, Gas de France Suez, yeah? And he was a very calm, he was a remarkable man. And he was talking to my colleagues at Sloan, and the Sloan professor said, so tell me about GDF Suez. I said, well, we moved into an energy service provider. We've done over 240 successful mergers, acquisitions, and strategic partnerships in over 100 countries. And my friend's chin hit the table. Meanwhile, HP and Compaq they put together, it was a train wreck. And he said, how did you do that? What's the secret? Cultural localization. Knowing and respecting your audience. How amazing is that, right? Here's an example. I met a young man who had built a small business for speech therapists. Basically, it said when you send your child, if they're having a speech problem where they're saying rabbit, wabbit, not rabbit, and you have to buy this tool set. It's $300, and it helps you turn your tongue and whatever it is that you do. And he was telling them he sold 10,000 units. But his next step was to do Bluetooth with this, to basically capture the data. And I met the number 3 man at Philips. And I said to him, he said, what can we do to make our business better? I said, you don't know your customer. People are buying toothbrushes and razors, and you don't even know who they are. You do business with a guy like this, all of a sudden, now you have dynamic value, kind of like iTunes, the way Apple connects, you know, an iPod, iPhone, iPad, whatever. It's all about iTunes and connectivity, dynamic connectivity to your customer. Carlos Santana, the musician, doesn't know who his own listeners are, right? So it's ability to connect that dynamic value that makes tremendous. So let's see what I have. I don't remember what is this a video or not? Is this a video? I think.
Not all of our students have the chance to travel abroad and to interact with native speakers of English. What our students really want is to speak English fluently, and we're always asking ourselves, how can we make it more real, more human? that connects our students with seniors in the USA living in retirement homes.
Hello, hello.
Melissa.
Hi, Dee. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
It's the first time that I'm talking with someone from another country.
I'm very excited to be doing this.
I look like I'm only 25, but I'm 88.
Do you have sisters and brothers?
No, I'm one child.
Only one? Oh, you poor fellow.
I'm with my old brother. He has 23 years.
Do you know, instead of saying he has 23 years, you could say he is 23 years old?
I tried to go to Lollapalooza that we have next week, I think, in Brazil, but my mom didn't let me.
So let's keep going. I think you get the idea, right? Let's see if we can, I want to get to the end because it's kind of cool. All right, so these are some other, I could go through some other case studies for you. Do you guys have, just to get a sense, are there questions that you're going to want to ask, or do you want me to keep going with case studies? What? You say, keep going? Okay, I'm happy to do that. All right, so here's an example. Do you guys know about the TED conference? Yes? TED? Okay. So I was one of the early TEDsters, and I got sent there by Mitsubishi 3 weeks after joining by the president. And he drops me into the deep end of the pool and says, make us good business. And I'm at a cocktail party out under the stars, and my name card says Michael Fox, President's Office, Mitsubishi. And I see another guy, and his name's John Volkma, and it says Herman Miller, Senior Vice President of Sales. And I'm an applied critical thinker, not just the abstraction, but I'm thinking, what does that really mean? Okay, so I went up to him, I said, hi John, it's nice to meet you, my name's Michael. We should party together, we should do business. And he goes, I don't see where cars and furniture come together. Now Herman Miller, I happen to know from personal experience, they're a $1.6 billion company, multi-tier distribution, they're tied for second place behind Steelcase. They're a very serious player, so if you go into a law office or if you go into a bank, that's the kind of furniture you're going to see. Very, very nice, very fancy, okay? And I said, well, first of all, that's Mitsubishi Heavy. We're Mitsubishi Electric. We do everything from semiconductors to consumer electronics. We build all of Microsoft's hardware products, but let's play connect the dots, follow the money. He goes, good, I don't know how to play. I said, well, you're Senior Vice President of Sales, so you see the whole pipeline, right? He goes, yeah. Can you provide a customer that you can speak about publicly, that you feel good about, and we'll work backwards and see if there's any meat on the bone. He goes, okay, Pentagon, 20,000 workstations. So I asked myself, well, how much do I think a workstation costs? Probably about $3,000. So, 20,000 workstations is a lot of money. So I said, so if I were to build you a silicon cubicle, what's that going to look like? And he literally clutches his heart like he's going to have a heart attack. And I was like, calm down, look up at the stars. And he looks up at the stars, and he's like, breathe normally. He said, okay, what is it? I said, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Now, he doesn't know that I grew up playing with Legos. I love Legos. And Mitsubishi was like a kid in a candy store with all this different technology. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is 2000, and I said, Cisco was trying to send people home for telecommuting, which is bad for the furniture business. So I said, okay, so if I'm walking down my corridor and I come up to my cubicle and I put up my biometric fingerprint, boom, 1394 fat pipe fires up with my video conference presets, my hard drive partition fires up for me, my cabinet unlocks, and now I can fight Cisco go home. And with wide area network speeds coming up to snuff, when I go down, when Scott McNeely, who's the CEO of Sun, goes down to San Antonio, and he goes, oh my God, and he sends a Learjet to pick me up, okay? And I said to this is an example. We ended up, they flew me out and I met with the board of directors. And turns out that was a $50 million business in year 4 just for Herman Miller, for our side. And it started an energy business for Herman Miller. But you can't strike out if you don't go up to the plate and try. But it was about thinking about him, not me, and how do we solve his problem, okay? Let me just keep going because there's some other things. So here's, I want to get to this part. one would ask, so Michael, you're an unusual dude. Why are you here? And why are you here today? Well, so I was I left America because I don't approve of what's been going on. It's the way things are, the way business is done is onerous, and it's not something I agree with. I won't be complicit. And I went to Australia because the world is changing and there's an opportunity to do some real impact, especially in climate, which is something I'm interested in. I'm a deep tech guy. And so I started looking around, and I went a walkabout, and I came back to Bali, and I realized that all the right pieces are in place, the fundamental ingredients. And these things don't happen magically overnight. They happen with, it's a concerted effort between the government, between enterprise, between the population of the people. And the more I learned about Indonesia, the more I realized that all the ingredients are coalescing in a most incredible way. I looked at what's happening with coal and nickel in the shipments. Not just moving the capital or the high-speed rail that's about to come online in June. Congratulations, first bullet train in South Asia, outstanding, right? And bigger population than the US, and such tremendous talent. And to me, it's not about where the seeds come from, it's the fertile garden, and that's what I see. And I vote with my feet. My parents taught me, well, you're driven by, you're defined by your own actions. So I moved to Indonesia, and I moved to Bali in particular because I believe that Indonesia has positioned itself to be the new Germany of the Southern Hemisphere for energy. And Bali is the new Switzerland. Not just because of what it is, but how people see it. So I'm setting up a venture studio. I've already got 3 initiatives I'm coalescing together, and that's why I'm here. And then I came across you guys. And to be quite frank, I've had a lifelong relationship with MIT, and I felt this reminds me of MIT, Indonesian style. So that's why I'm here. Okay, so I've talked on like this. I could go on like this for 8 hours, literally. It's kind of scary. Can I answer any questions for you guys? No? Yes? Don't be shy. You're welcome. I can't really see very well. But really, one of the issues, you have to step out of your comfort zone. I'm a resource for you guys, okay? I'm a gateway into the rest of the world, into corporate mindset. How do you get market adoption, de-risking, right? Building valuation. There you go. Now I feel better. See, you make me feel better when you ask questions. Thank you for asking a question.
Greetings, Mr. Fox. My name is Harris. I'm a student here at SBM-ITB.
Can you speak up just a little so I can hear you? You don't have to stand up. I just need to hear you a little bit. It's hard to hear you.
Okay. Greetings, Mr. Fox. My name is Harris. I'm a student here at SBM-ITB. I got a question to ask. The question is, I recently watched a video from MIT OCW, the OpenCourseware from MIT. And
great stuff, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Keep thinking it's a microphone.
Like one of the topic that I was watching is the how being an entrepreneur as a startup founder and a regular entrepreneur is really different. Like when you start building a startup, that the margin of the profit and the losses had a very wide margin, like the margin of profit and loss as a startup founder, rather than like starting like a small business, like selling clothes, T-shirts, or selling foods, like etc. So seeing the the tech winter that's currently happening throughout the startup world today, do you think it's really a good idea to start a startup in this climate? Thank you.
Okay, so let me back up here a little for the rest of you. OCW is OpenCourseware, and MIT made a decision. It was a conscious decision about 20 years ago. They said, look, you know, knowledge is not something one covets. It's not right. Just because somebody is lucky enough or wealthy enough or has the opportunity to go to MIT doesn't mean that you should protect the knowledge. So we said, you know what? We're making it available for everybody. So they put their courses online. Now, if you want a degree, you got to go to MIT, but they make it available. We're very nonpartisan. We don't covet, okay? So good on them for that. So I think I'd like to answer that a little bit differently. First of all, it should be clear that some of the best value comes in the winter, in the darkness, when life is really tough, not in the spring when everything sprouts. It's the wintertime when you find some of the real pearls. And I'd like to change the way you think about it from money to value. Okay, so I was in Holland. I keep thinking this is I'll put this down, sorry. And I was talking, I was giving a lecture there, and the Prince of Holland asked to meet with me. And here's this incredibly successful guy who's an MBA, a lawyer, a billionaire, and cares about his people. So he's been working with the startup community. And he said, Michael, if you bring the VCs from Silicon Valley, they will come. It'll be awesome. I said, respectfully, sir, Prince, I don't agree with you. I said, I went and I did my homework before I came here. I spoke to 4 different entrepreneurial efforts. I asked them, what would it take to hire you? You know what they all said? What's my pension? You got a DNA problem. Because if you want to do a startup, it's a risk and reward exercise, okay? Pension is a legacy issue, so that's a cultural thing that has to change, okay? But it's not just that you bring the money follows the value. If you show the value, people will find you. Opportunity will find you. And it's not just about money as a form of value, without question, but if you build something that has intrinsic value to it, opportunity tends to gravitate towards it, okay? But you need to think about the other things that are some of the impediments, okay? Not just about when to do a startup. You have to think about the audience. In that case, let me use that example of the Prince, for example. Let's think this through. If I call Tim Draper, who's a famous VC in Silicon Valley, and say, hey, Tim, you really got to come to Holland. There are 6 startups. Oh, my God. He'll send a minion over to look at the startup. But he's going to say, why would I invest in one of these startups here when I can just easily invest in Silicon Valley or US or something like that? I need to know that there's a syndicate there. What's the tax structure? Where are there people that have my interests at heart, that are going to reflect my interests, right? If you haven't thought about that, then there's no point. So you need to think ahead. What's that conversation going to look like, right? So when you talk about, is this a good time? I don't think there's ever necessarily a bad time, but is the opportunity solid? Is there something of intrinsic value? And it's going to be iterative. It's not going to be what you start out to be, I'll guarantee you. But I celebrate it. I love watching these opportunities and ideas come to life. It's fantastic. You know, I saw a startup. How many of you know what a gas sensor is? Okay, so gas sensor is about the size of my fist. It's about parts per million, and it's about as exciting as dirt, right? The gas sensor, right? And I was in France, and I saw a piece of silicon that was smaller than the size of the head of a pin, and parts per billion, and programmable. Oh my God. And it was incredible. And I said, oh, I really want to work with these guys. This is incredibly powerful. And the team I was working with, really wealthy family, you know, when you drink alcohol, it's in your system for 24 hours. And a breathalyzer only measures metabolic rate for about 6 to 8 hours. But it's still in your system. But your skin, newsflash, is off-gassing at a very microscopic level and a linear rate, 24 hours, okay? The people I was working with, they said, oh, we want to get this technology, we want to embed it in steering wheels. I don't want to encourage Big Brother, right? I don't know if you follow what's going on with the grading program in China, but that's not what I care about. But what I care about, when I look at that, I see opportunity, I see value. 18 months, 24 months, it could live in a water bottle and say, guess what? This water is safe for you to drink, but not for me. Personalized medicine. Now that's, right? And when you start getting passionate about it, just get out of the way and just go. So it's not about winter, spring, and the value, but is this something you really believe in? Because people will pick up on that passion. They absolutely will. I don't know if that answers your question. Are there any other questions? Oh, another question. I'm so excited. Gee, I'm really nervous here. You can't tell, I bet, huh?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Sama-sama. I'm learning.
Would like to ask, because there are so many startup company receive funding, startup company receive funding.
I'm sorry, well, I don't know, I didn't quite hear the question. Say again?
No, the thing is nowadays there are a lot of startup company receive funding from venture capitals, right?
Yes.
And then we'd like to know what happens if the company receive the fund, receive investment, and then the business plan turned to be a failure, like probably because one and another, and then usually the money is already spent for investment, for operating expenses and everything. And then we also seen in the media that some of the startups is going bankrupt, and usually it comes with debt, right? So if that happen, what will be the visit thing about the funder itself? Is it as a failure or probably get blacklisted or what? And what about the debt itself? Is it will be the responsibility of the funder only, or how to manage it usually?
Okay, so you asked very good questions, first of all. Thank you. Terima kasih. So that's about a 15-minute answer. But let me see if I can try to answer part of it. First of all, let me answer from my own perspective. I confess, and I own it, I try to be objective, but I'm biased, okay? I've seen where the diamonds are buried and where the diamond bodies are buried, and I don't necessarily agree. I'm not going to be partisan to some of the way institutional capital works, because it's just not, I've seen what happens, I've seen what it can do to people, I've seen successes too, but it's not something that's really about me, okay? The playing, it's basically high-risk poker, okay? I'm not saying that this is wrong. It's wonderful for many people. Personally, I'm very much a get your hands dirty. I have nothing wrong. I love getting in. I will throw my shoulder against initiatives, and I take it as serious as a heart attack. So to answer your question, what am I doing? A venture studio is really about taking a core idea or concept, bringing the right talent together, and kicking it out and actually doing it, right? And funding it and doing all the things that are necessary. It's a lot of heavy lifting. So it's not about making 10 investments or 100 investments. It's probably about making 3 to 5 investments and then actually working as stakeholders with each of these companies and making sure that they don't make avoidable mistakes. So that's something I believe in. And so I look at particular projects that I think that are incredibly impactful, that can have an economic driver for an environmental upside. It has to have a kind of a unique balance. That being said, so that's my personal issue. So I have 3 that I'm looking at right now. That one's a satellite to protect critical infrastructure. Another is little agriculture, vertical farming with an energy play for self-sustaining food supply that'll help mitigate issues of supply chain. And the third has to do with trying to offset some of the particulates and NOx output for combustion engines globally for gas and diesel that has coal applications. Okay, so those are the things I'm looking at. That aside, for some of these startups and for some of the people that I saw this morning who I really, and it's not no judgment, but some of the things really resonated with me. I'm a facilitator. I have no hesitation to pick up a phone and rattle somebody's cage and say, you need to put a spotlight on this. This is pretty awesome, right? And some of the corporates, they don't know about this yet. And many behave well, some don't. But if I try to put my shoulder behind and help some companies like that, that's going to feed the soul for me, right? That's something I enjoy doing because I like seeing good things succeed. So, but I can turn around and I can open doors, but I can't do it without the help and the support of the innovation of the company. They have to be prepared to deliver the value. I can say, look over there, oh my God. And they may very well look over there, But then the company has to stand and shine on its own. It's not about me. It's about the company, okay? And so it really, I don't know if that answers your question or not. Maybe I got off topic. Did I help answer the question? You asked me about what I wanted, the fund that I'm putting together. So that's what I got distracted. I apologize.
Yeah, I do understand that the visit may involve working together with the founder and the entrepreneur itself, right? So I assume that the direction of the company will be based on the discussion with the venture capital, right? But sometimes that life happens, right? That something bad turns out, and then the company. Then the business plan cannot roll as it planned. So maybe it causes a lot of loss and cannot survive anymore. So probably it has to be closed. I mean, like the business has to be closed, and then come a lot of debts. And what happens, because we see in the media some of the startup
Here's a news flash. The path of a startup and an entrepreneur is absolutely not easy. And it is fraught with pitfalls. If somebody is looking for a nice, stable home, this is not that world. This is, late nights, hard work, making lots of mistakes, hitting your head against the wall. It's going to be painful. But the joys are also there, too. It's being in charge of your own destiny. And they say that, for example, there's a reason why 1 in 10 startups succeed. But each time you do it, when you see successful startups or entrepreneurs, you say, oh my God, that looks amazing. You don't see the roadkill that got them there, the mistakes they made, the learned insight, right? But it makes you a stronger person. It really does. Even if you try and you fail, I respect you for it. I've failed a lot, right? I've also succeeded a lot, but I've learned, I try to make better mistakes, right? But it doesn't matter whether or not, when I was an entrepreneur when I was quite young, and then I went and joined corporate, and it made me a stronger corporate thinker, right? Because I started understanding, oh, well, maybe if I say, look, they're probably very concerned about this, how can I be respectful but get them to move over here, right? So there's tremendous value to it. I would celebrate the journey, not just the milestones. Everybody tries to measure it on a money metric, but it's a value metric. And you as an individual, as someone who can learn to engage across different cultures and boundaries, that makes you stronger as an individual, yeah? And I do celebrate it, and there's a reason why I still do it now, because I really enjoy it. And I love watching people discover it. And when that young man from the young lawyer told me that, it moved me profoundly. Because I told him, I said, look, you guys are the new problem solvers of the next generation, and if you don't live and breathe innovation, you got to at least speak the language. To lawyers. Historically, the role of the lawyer is the shield, not the sword. Now they have an opportunity to really affect change. Anyway, I chatter on. Any other questions? Wow, I've left you all breathless.
Excuse me, Mr. Michael Fox, because the limitation of the
Terima kasih.
duration,
I
maybe that
apologize.
was the
I could go
end
on and
of
on.
the question. Thank you so much, Mr. Michael Fox, for giving us a very insightful talk today. You may come back to your seat.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Michael Fox. Once again, give a big round of applause for our distinguished speaker today.
Very good question.
Okay, ladies and